a show that tackles the big issues affecting the BVI and the rest of the Caribbean. Searches for answers to today's big questions and gives viewers a unique perspective on developing stories. Follow the big story with me, Kathy Richards, only on JTV. This show is brought to you by the National Bank of the Virgin Islands, Digicel, Cyril B. Romney Tortola, Pier Park, Nagico Insurances, Banco Popular, Simply Secure, and NV Salon, Spa, Nail, and Barbershops.
You value traditions. You value music. You value education. Family.
I love you.
Service.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Love, life. At Popular, we're committed to you and everything our community values. For the things you value the most, count on us. Popular.
Stop.
Think
Before you act.
Think before you act.
On this edition of The Big Story, Representative for District 2 and a member of Her Majesty's Loyal Opposition, Honorable Melvin Mitch Turnbull, addresses Cabinet's recent announcement of hiring political advisors for Premier and Ministers of Government of the British Virgin Islands. Honorable Melvin Mitch Turnbull, thank you so much for taking my call. How are you doing?
Kathy, I am doing well. Thank you very much for calling. Despite of all that's going on in the territory, my heart is still heavy and grieving with those who have lost loved ones who are going through this difficult time. But I remain hopeful. I remain prayerful that we will get through this with the help of God. And I just want to send prayers and strength and encouragement to all the persons in the territory who have lost their loved ones, especially those from the 2nd District community. But all in all, Kathy, I believe in God, and I believe not only that He cares, but I believe He's faithful. And He knows what He's doing, even when we don't know what He's doing.
It's something that we all are feeling what's going on. It's unprecedented. No way did we envisage that our territory and the world would have been facing what we are facing in this moment. So it's very hard in every respect.
Yes, we must move on, but not just move on. We must move on with a hope and a belief that we have been through difficult times before. Our heritage and our foundation shows us that we have been able to overcome difficult situations, and the only how that we will be able to do so is with the help of God. It's something that I keep as my mantra, Kathy. I don't mean to preach, but my Matthew 6:33 says, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all things will be added unto us." And I know in these difficult times, I just want to be an encouragement to someone, and as a leader who the people have entrusted to serve them, I just want to do my utmost best to ensure that I am being a voice to spread the message of hope and give some sort of encouragement that we are going through difficult times, acknowledging that these are indeed difficult times. But I know for a fact that just as we did with Irma and Maria and the floods and any other difficult period, with the help of God together, as our brothers and sisters, as we stand together, we will make it through. And I also want to recognize, acknowledge, and celebrate the hard-working personnel in the health services field, from BVI HSA to all the private facilities and doctors, all counselors and therapists, and those social workers who are helping, who are giving sacrificially of their time and their talents and their efforts to help us all in this territory as we face not just a local issue that we're facing with this pandemic, whether it's international, it's regional, it's throughout the world.
Suffice to say, you must continue with what you are called for by the people to do, elected to do, and that is to keep the government of the day on its heels, being a watchful eye to help them to see what they may not see and put in place, and in instances where you have to object or applaud, do so. Most recently, we've had your voice come out again, and that is for political advisors to ministers of government. We saw in social media and in the headlines your thoughts on this. I would love if you can share with us in this moment your take on that.
Well, Kathy, I believe that given the information that was presented from the cabinet extract and understanding what was put forward and what was agreed upon, given the current circumstance and situation that we are in this territory, the difficulties that persons are facing, the fact that businesses have been closed for 15 months, people have been without work, children have been unable to go back to school, our education system is in dire need of attention and financing and just simply an overhaul. We have persons, our civil servants are facing difficulties. We're not being able to get their increments. We have our healthcare workers who are strained and overworked, but they're continuing to give sacrificially. We to have such a decision made that you are going to give $120,000, and based on my calculations, if we were to just calculate 25% of that for gratuities, vacation, and sick days, you're looking at $150,000 that we're willing to basically just give away for political advisors to write speeches for our ministers of government. 2.5 years almost after they have been elected. It is reckless, it is unconscionable, and Kathy, it is just not needed. The government needs to be held accountable, and I had to, as somebody put there to serve the people, I had to lend my voice to let the people of the Virgin Islands know that it was not a decision made by the members of the House of Assembly. This is a decision made by 5 members of the cabinet, who are the 5 ministers, and I just can't understand what they could be thinking about in this time.
But the Premier said in an interview that I did with him just last weekend that this was not something that required the intervention at a House of Assembly level.
Well, when he said that, and he said a lot of things, I guess, trying to, as I said in my statement, I know there will be efforts to try to justify the reasons, because I'm questioning, Kathy. We had an informal meeting of the House of Assembly that lasted over 3.5 hours last week Friday. We discussed and received updates from the healthcare workers from the HEOC. The Premier had his time to give updates. The ministers had their time to give, and not one of them, Kathy, not one of them uttered that this decision was made on the cabinet level. It might not be warranted to in their minds to have a discussion in the House of Assembly, but as leaders of the territory, this affects the people of the territory, and something is wrong, Kathy. I feel like there's a disconnect between this administration, this cabinet, these ministers of cabinet, and the Premier and his ministers, and what's going on with the reality on the ground with the people. Because for you to make these type of decisions, when you have permanent secretaries, when you have private secretaries, when you have technocrats who have all been trained, who have all been educated, who have all had the experience, you're telling me at this time in our territory, given the difficulties that people are facing, given the hurt that people are experiencing, given the lives and families that have been affected, and people don't know how they're going to bury their loved ones or how they're going to move on, you see it fit as your government, as 5 ministers, to make a decision to give yourselves and have advisors for $120,000 in this time. Kathy, it is just not right. It is just absolutely absurd. And what I am questioning even more is it is almost a lightning onto like an occult behavior, because I can't comprehend that you have 4 other ministers that none of them seemingly have a voice to oppose and said to the premier, listen, premier, I know, I understand, I hear what you're trying to do, but I do not agree. It seems like they have lost their voice and all just succumb to whatever the premier is putting forward. It is troubling to me, and I am hoping, Kathy, that the people of this territory are frustrated enough, as I am, that something needs to change, and this decision needs to be rescinded. It needs to be stopped.
Okay, so let me put it this way to you, and in no way am I defending or supporting either side of this, but looking at it from, in an objective way. Allow me to ask you this. Is the government, in your view, doing an applaudable job or reasonably enough a job in its communication with the people of the territory?
Kathy, that's a difficult question to ask, because I believe there are instances where the government has had, I would say, good spans of having communication and being informative to the people, and there are other times, like now, that they have done a very, very poor job in communicating to people. But that is not for the lack of persons. That is not for the lack of resources within the ministries. That is just them seemingly, as I've said before, in cabinet, and the people needs them to come out of cabinet and touch the reality of the ground. There are 13 of us elected to the government of the Virgin Islands who sit in the House of Assembly. And what I can't understand, the same premier was the same premier who was the leader of opposition at the time after the hurricanes, who called and joined with me and my voice to say, let us come together because we have to do this together. But on one hand, you hear we are in this together and we're doing this together. But the reality on the ground is that's not the case. That's not the case. So I believe they have a whole lot of work to do in terms of communicating. And when decisions like this are made, and you hope, it seems that it was made on July 8th, and we are now on the the week of the 23rd, Kathy, and then you look and see that no utterance was made until I objected and put something out, and it came out in the media, and then you hear from the premier some sort of try to have a justification of what they're trying to do and why they're trying to do it and why they think it's necessary. But it cannot be necessary given the reality on the ground, given the fact that you have the schools where students are unable to sit in the classroom, where you have social ills continue, the social services and social development department continue to struggle to help and provide for families, where you have instances where people are just struggling and suffering to try to see how they're going to make it from one day to the next.
I heard the premier said, and he actually said it to me in that interview last week, that the challenge is that the ministries are now tasked with much more work than they would have originally, and with the pandemic especially on, there is a extreme stretch of resources, which warrants the need for assistance for the ministers, especially in getting their advices up and their communication levels up. Isn't this justifiable?
Kelly, I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it because we've been through worse times, and the resources that you have. Again, you have permanent secretaries who have private secretaries. The ministers have their private secretaries. There are technical persons. There is enough capacity within the government system, Kathy, for the ministers, for the ministries, for the government of the Virgin Islands to get whatever work needs to be done. Our civil service, our expenses based on the budget of the Virgin Islands our expenses based on salaries is about 70% of the budget of the Virgin Islands. That's where our expenses are held based on emoluments and taking care of our people that we haven't hired. So there's enough resources, there's enough human capacity within the government system to be able to facilitate all things that are necessary. What we need to do is not just say, well, we have this money, it's already in the ministries. We could use this money. We're talking about $1 million, Kathy. $1 million can do a whole lot.
Premier says it's not $1 million.
Well, he says it's not $1 million, but the numbers based on the cabinet extract. Again, I'm going from what was put out into the public. It's $120,000. So if you do $120,000 times 7 or times 9 or 150 based on the 25% times 7 or times 9, it's over $1 million.
I guess that you would have listened to the premiere in its entirety last Friday or some other time when you would have had the chance, and you still are not convinced that this is a warranted move. While I was paying keen attention to comments and other things that persons have been saying since this particular issue has hit the social media and the general public, one cry that stood out to me is when someone would have commented that, you know, we have the healthcare workers working strenuous hours with depleted resources, under extreme circumstances, and they are being paid their basic salaries with no overtime. I cannot justify that. I have not been able to get from the relevant authorities if this is a fact. But to your knowledge, what's going on there?
Well, Kathy, you pointed out the healthcare sector, and there is, based on my understanding and some of the communications I've had with some of the professionals there and those in leadership, there are some factual statements in what you just said, and that's for the healthcare sector. But there are other areas within the territory, Kathy, that are strained. The teachers, our educators, they have been strained. They have been underpaid. They have been overworked. When you look at the social services and through social development and family support network, when you look at the areas of social concern within the territory of the Virgin Islands, when you look at the fire and rescue, when you look at our frontline workers, Kathy, when you look at the overall system, there is a burden for lack of resources. So I just cannot comprehend, and no one will be able to convince me, Kathy, that this decision that was made by the 5 members of cabinet is acceptable. It is not justifiable, so I don't care how many words they try to put, Kathy. In this current situation, you have had to be completely out of touch with reality on the ground to make such a decision and try to still convince people that you are making the right decision.
If things are not changed in a very short manner to, as is being felt, that things are not being done by the powers that be to reach the basic needs of the masses, where do you see us heading?
We're headed for a very, very bad place, and we are already in a bad place. We have the commission of inquiry that's already here, that continues to uncover, that continues to unearth some of the skeletons that we have tried to bury. And it is nothing. I am not trying to be holier than thou, because I am not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But one of the things that I have held to since I've been elected in 2015, we are the ones that continue to do things to ourselves. We are the ones that haven't held ourselves accountable. We have the ones that have not challenged the status quo, but have gone along with it or tried to create and match different ways to continue our ill behavior and the way that we manage the public's money. So where we would see this going if nothing changes is the public will continue to give their outcry. They will continue to be frustrated and vent their frustration. But what I'm hoping, Kathy, is that somehow, some way, our people get the courage and continue to be courageous and speak out and speak truth to power so that change is realized in this territory. Because I believe in 2019, when the people of the Virgin Islands voted for this VIP administration, they were hoping that things would change. But Kathy, my assessment of this administration in the 2.5 years or 2+ years that they've been in, we are down the same road. And if I was to be absolutely honest, we are farther down the same road that we were on before. And the people are frustrated. I am frustrated, and something needs to be done.
We often hear that the British Virgin Islands does not print money. But do you think a stimulus is due in this time for the people?
But Kathy, that's the thing. The stimulus that we gave, based on the $40 million from Social Security, we haven't had a full account of that money. You heard from the Auditor General in certain instances how funds were mismanaged, how it was given out and not properly accounted for. So where do we stand now in terms of funding the public in the sectors that need it, and where do we get this money from? I have asked the question in the House of Assembly on numerous occasions, Kathy. We don't even know what the economic impact of this pandemic is since we've been going through it almost 2 years now. We need to have these types of things answered. Not talking about $1 million here and this is justifiable, and then every now and again you hear God throwing into this and God throwing into that. God is not a God of confusion. He is not a God of confusion. And we have to just hold the government's feet to the fire and fact check the things that they say against the things that they do. And when you do that, Kathy, you realize a lot of it is contradiction to what they have said, and their actions are contradictory to what they do.
Okay, and beside the district representatives speaking out on these issues, which is very often taken as, okay, this is a political kind of a fight. The other side of it is what we've been hearing recently, that the people who are directly affected, like you are saying, the teachers, the healthcare workers, and all other sectors, need to rise up in a different way in order to have their voices heard and and decisions made in their favor somehow.
Yes, Kathy, and believe me, they are doing. There is a stirring up, Kathy, of courageous persons and people who just have had enough, who are just frustrated and who can't take it anymore, that have been voicing their opinions and will continue to voice their opinions. And at the end of the day, I'm always humbled by the fact, Kathy, that yes, I am elected to leadership, but my first and foremost objective is to serve the people of this territory, and the people of the territory are the ones that I work for. So the people are the ones that we serve, and what they want, what they require, is what we should be moving towards to achieve.
Okay, Honorable Turnbull, it's been a pleasure having this conversation. I know difficult circumstances would not have allowed for us to see ourselves face to face, and even via other means where we could have really see expressions of a face, and while we speak, I guess your beard is probably long long to your chest by now.
Well, I am doing my best to be respectful and obedient to the protocols that have been set forth. So I haven't had the opportunity to head to a barber. I might put the razor to my face and see what the outcome of that might be. But But outside of that, Kathy, on a serious note, I am worried. I am troubled. I am seriously concerned for this territory. And my question that I would leave with you for the ministers of the Virgin Islands government cabinet, is there not one voice that is still in touch with the hearts and the minds of people that is able to speak out on behalf of the people? You were elected to serve the people of the Virgin Islands. You were not elected to cabinet. And I am just hoping that there's at least one voice that will just bring a stop to some of the madness that we're seeing. And I want to give and extend encouragement to the people of the Virgin Islands that even though these times are difficult, there is hope. And hope simply means there is light at the end of the dark tunnel. And I believe it in all my heart that I would do all that I can. Continue to let my voice continue to do the things that I need to do to ensure that this Virgin Islands continues to rise not only from the ashes, but rise and be the epitome of leadership as a territory, as a small island nation, to be an example to the region and the rest of the world.
Okay, Honorable Turnbull, I want to thank you on that note of encouragement of hope. Yes, there is light at the end of the tunnel, but we cannot get to that light if we stand still. And so I want to thank you so much for accepting my call, and I want to thank you, viewers and listeners, mainly, for joining us for this edition of The Big Story. I'm Kathy Richards.